For most of us, if we think about shark jaws, it's likely that this is the kind of image we conjure up. A big, very dangerous looking fish with huge jaws tearing great chunks of flesh from a whale carcass, or some other relatively big mammalian prey like seals or dolphins. There are certainly species of sharks that can do this, but they are very much in the minority. Of the 400 or so living species, most never exceed 1.5 meters or around 5 feet in length. And aside from the great white shark, there are only three that regularly prey on mammals such as dolphins, seals, and the occasional human. These are the tiger shark, bull shark, and short-finned mako. Most sharks feed on other fish, while a handful specialize in mollusks, crabs, and other invertebrates. Three are filter feeders of plankton. Now, shark teeth vary greatly in size and shape, reflecting the diversity of their prey. But despite this variety, there is one feature common to the jaws of them all. They are all effectively made of rubber. Not only that, but their jaws are only loosely connected to the rest of their skulls, and their skulls aren't even really skulls. Perhaps even more bizarrely still, most sharks can protrude their jaws to some degree, and some can protrude them a lot. What's going on with these crazy shark jaws? Are there any advantages to having loosely connected rubber jaws? Or are these just problems that sharks have had to work around? Stick around if you'd like to find out. Hi, I'm Professor Steve Wroe. I'm a real paleontologist, and you're watching Real Paleontology. And today, we're talking about sharks. Shark jaws, in fact. And like I just said, looking at them from a mammal's perspective, shark jaws are just plain nuts. On first take, they make no sense at all. They're made out of cartilage, which in terms of material properties is a lot closer to rubber than it is to bone. And they are only kind of loosely connected to the rest of the skull. In fact, technically, they don't have a skull. They have a chondrocranium, which houses the brain, the eyes, and such. The jaws come as separate items. As we've seen in some previous episodes, at least some sharks can bite pretty damn hard. Why would you use rubbery jaws to do this? Now, I've always been interested in sharks, but my interest really grew when I started working on this paper published in 2008, How Hard Can a Great White Bite? Here we generated a 3D engineering model of a subadult great white shark's jaws and chondrocranium, then reconstructed its jaw-closing muscles and simulated different bites. In this work, we didn't just get estimates of its maximum bite forces, we also got insight into the way that stress was distributed through the jaws. We came up with predicted maximum bite forces of 1600 newtons at the front teeth and 3100 at the back teeth. We used this then as a basis from which to predict bite forces in a big adult great white shark, as well as the monstrous megalodon. Anyway, the bite force we got for our 240K subadult specimen sounds pretty impressive, but it's worth noting that for its size, it's not really a big biter. For example, an African lion of this size could bite twice as hard, and a 100-kilo marsupial lion could bite harder. Our modelling provided another unexpected revelation. Although the fact that the shark's jaws were effectively made of rubber, and the jaws certainly bent way more than would be expected from the jaws made of bone, but this only slightly reduced its maximum bite force. So, what's going on here? Why does the shark appear to need far less bite force to do the killing than a similar sized terrestrial predator? Well, I'm glad you asked. Fact is, the white shark uses its jaws and teeth very differently. Its teeth are obviously a very different shape to those of a big marine mammalian predator like a killer whale. These are cutting tools, great for slicing through skin, blubber, and flesh, but very poorly adapted for biting into bone. Like I explained in this previous episode on the hyena, if you want to bust a bone, you need a hammer, not
a knife. Yeah, sure, white sharks do bite into bone on occasion, sometimes leaving their teeth in it, but this is more by accident than design. However, if its teeth do contact bone, the rubber-like elasticity of its jaws allows them to bend, reducing the chances that teeth will be broken. And of course, if all else fails and teeth do break, unlike any mammalian counterpart, the shark can and will replace them. There's another advantage to having jaws of rubber too. Cartilage is considerably lighter than bone and less expensive energetically to grow and maintain. Now, the fact that the white shark is specifically targeting softer, more compliant parts of the body only partly explains the fact that its bite force is relatively weak. There is another factor at play here. As you can see in this clip, the shark isn't just using its jaw muscles when it bites. It uses other muscles to shake its head from side to side. Effectively, the shark saws its way through the flesh of its prey. Not all sharks do this by shaking or twisting their bodies, but many do, and perhaps the most extreme version of this technique is exemplified by this nasty looking little critter here, the cookie cutter shark. It feeds by ascending from the deep to quickly extract a neatly excised chunk of flesh from its victims before hightailing it back to its deep, dark home waters. We know it does this, but the act itself has never been seen. To get a better idea of how the cookie cutter shark does the deed, Mark Grace and friends performed some really neat experiments using 3D printed copies of their jaws, published in this 2022 paper. They determined that the shark was most likely spinning its whole body to achieve the perfect bite.
This brings us to another beautifully simple but really cool set of experiments run by Catherine Korn and friends from the University of Washington in 2016. Basically, they took teeth from 10 species of shark with widely varying tooth shapes and diets, glued them to pieces of metal, and then attached these to a reciprocating saw, just like so. They then repeatedly applied this apparatus to mimic the effect of the shark shaking its head from side to side, cutting through big chunks of salmon for each species. The goal was to compare how effective each tooth type was and how quickly they wore down to become blunt. What they found was that the pointy, more needle like teeth from sharks that mostly fed on small, slippery fish were less effective at sawing through the salmon, but they remained sharper for longer. On the other hand, teeth like those of the tiger shark that often feed on relatively big prey, including big turtles, were great for sawing, but quickly became blunt. This raises the very real and intriguing possibility that the teeth of the tiger shark, and possibly even the great white shark, are pretty much entirely disposable items to be used once and then effectively thrown away to be rapidly replaced by the next tooth in the tooth row. In these sharks, teeth aren't being replaced because they're broken, but simply because they get blunt. There's another interesting possibility here regarding the tiger shark. Despite the fact that it regularly saws through things as hard as sea turtle shells, their jaws are particularly rubbery and bendy, kind of the opposite to what you might expect. What I reckon might be happening here is that these rubber jaws can actually bend around the turtle shell to make for a more efficient sawing motion. Now, as I mentioned at the top of the show, many sharks have another surprising bit of kit at their disposal, jaws that they can fling forward. But before I quickly discuss this, can I ask that you like and subscribe to the channel? Anyway, if you want to protrude your jaws, it sure helps if they're only loosely connected to your cranium. No mammal could do this. By shooting their jaws forward, sharks can both increase their strike range and generate rapid suction to pull prey in. Many of you would likely have seen this handy little trick performed in videos of white sharks feeding. But there's one species of shark that truly takes it to the next level, the aptly named deep sea goblin shark. It can fling its jaws forward at an astounding speed of more than 3 meters or 9 feet per second. Food is scarce, down there in the ocean depths. And when you find something, you can't afford to let it slip by. Anyway, I'll end the episode here. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back next week.